Welcome to Now You See It, Now You Don't, Steam for Tweens. I'm Mrs. Peeling, and we're actually going to use some steam and other heat sources to make some messages disappear. Well, we're going to talk about friction today. And if you got a bag, picked up a bag, in it you will find a friction pen, a couple of pieces of just regular printer paper, and a sheet that has a couple of recipes, ideas for making disappearing ink, other than what we're going to do today. So if you did not get a bag, Friction Pens, it's a brand name of pen with thermosensitive ink. And you can buy these at Staples or Michael's now in town. So what is friction and why do we need it? The official definition is friction is a heat-producing force that resists the motion of objects moving against each other. Well, try this. Rub your hands together real fast, fast as you can. Then put them on your cheeks. You feel that warmth? The faster you rub your hands, the warmer your hands get. And that is caused by friction of two surfaces rubbing together. I've heard it said you can start a fire rubbing with two sticks rubbing together. And here's a dad joke. How do you light a fire with two sticks? Make sure one of them is a match. And you can groan and roll your eyeballs now. All right, if you've ever seen something like this, as you're driving down the road, scary sight to see a car or a truck with smoke coming from the tires. That's friction. And your brakes are overheated because you've been stomping down hard on the brakes. And every time you step on the brakes, the brake pads press into the rotors, creating friction. The heat energy from that friction builds up, causing the brake pads to get superheated to the point where they start smoking. And you've probably seen skid marks on the road caused by friction between the tires that suddenly stopped rolling and the asphalt, creating enough heat to take a layer of rubber off the tires. So now we're going to talk about what that has to do with our friction pens. And here's a caution. If you ever have this word on a spelling or a science test, if you spell it this way, you get a green light. If you spell it this way, see that big red X in the middle? Wrong. So this is just the brand name. So make sure you're using the right spelling on your test. Okay. Remember, friction produces heat, like the smoking brakes. So we're going to heat things up a little bit right now. I have a number of heat producing sources to try with our friction pens. And the tea kettle, and I'm going to turn that on right now. There you go. And it's going to start heating up. I have a curling iron. I have a griddle over here. I'll show you that in just a little bit. And a light bulb. This is an incandescent light bulb, the kind that are not made in America anymore. But you can still get them for grow lights. They produce heat. That LED light bulbs don't produce heat. So watch what's happening with the water that's heating up. It'll take a little minute, but those water molecules start bouncing around in the heat. And this is what happens. Friction pens have this special thermosensitive, meaning heat sensitive, ink in them. They're made up of 3 parts: a color molecule, an acid molecule, and these 2 bond together naturally. And then there's a transparency agent. Well, when things start heating up and like the water is going to start bouncing around and bounces these molecules around and breaks that bond. So now you have the acid bonding with the transparency agent and nothing bonding with the color. So you don't see color. You're going to see how that works in just a minute. Let's take a look at some other things besides our friction pens while this is starting to bubble. Maybe you can see the bubbles coming up in here. They're breaking apart the water molecules to make steam. Well, here I've written in pencil and in ballpoint pen. I'm going to use an eraser to erase the pencil. Take a look at that. It's gone, the word is gone, but look at all those crumbs. You see all the crumbs? Makes a mess. We got it on the computer. And that is because we've just rubbed off a layer, the top layer, which happened to be the pencil marks. If I try that with ballpoint pen, nothing happens except I crinkle up the paper and eventually tear a hole in it. Because again, it's trying to rub off the top layer. Well, when we do that with our friction pen, I'm going to write on here, tea kettle. You see the water bouncing around in there now? All right. So the tea kettle, heat, and it is hot. So remember, all of these things are hot. So please be very careful when you're doing this at home. And watch what happens to the word tea kettle. Gone. Like magic. Well, there's a way we can get this magic word back, and that's by applying what the opposite of heat is, which is cold. And you all have a freezer at your homes, I'm sure. I couldn't get a refrigerator in this room, so I just have down there on the floor an ice chest. I have blocks of ice in here. I'm going to put our disappearing message right in here on top. And ice blocks are not nearly as efficient as your freezer at home. But we'll let that stay in there for a few minutes and see what happens while we test some of these others. All right, so the heat from the tea kettle made the letters disappear. Let's see what the steam does. I've written here, steam. And I'm going to take this top off carefully. Steam is very hot. And just put it, oh, man, that took no time at all. It's gone. All right. So the steam will go in the cooler too. And let's see what else we have. Let me put my kettle down here. And we'll try out the light bulb. I don't want this to blind you, so there we go. So heat, hot. Be careful, careful when you're doing your experiments. All right, so I'm going to write light bulb. With my friction pen. Can you see it there? There we go. Light bulb. Let's see if this is hot enough. I'm going to drag it very carefully across here so I'm not burning my fingers. Let's see. It hasn't warmed up quite enough yet, but it'll be coming. There we go. It's getting lighter. I'm going to use my tongs here so I can get it closer to the light bulb. This is exactly why they don't sell these anymore, because they do produce a lot of heat. And that's a lot of energy that we don't really need to be using. Now we have LED light bulbs. When you open your refrigerator, you'll have a light come on. That is an incandescent light bulb too. And these grow lights that I've got in here for plants, there you go. It's gone. So, and now let's try my curling iron. This one is not a very fancy curling iron, so it just turns on automatically. And get rid of this. This is the other thing. Very hot. Don't touch these with your fingers. See the griddle here? You might have a pancake griddle like that, or this would even work if you have a flat stovetop. But please, please, please make sure you get permission to use any of these things before you try them. And while that's warming up, I will write on here curling iron. While we're doing this, you might be thinking of what you have around your house that might be a heat producing source, and ask for permission to do this before you try any experimenting. So here's curling iron. Let's see what that does. I have my paper cut in strips, just so I had a bunch of them. You can do anything with yours you like. You can leave the whole piece, write a letter. You only want one person to see. And hold this over here. There we go. It is gone. And one more. In order to break the bonds of the ink, remember how we talked about the color and the acid being bonded together? And when you apply heat, they break apart. Okay. So that's what we're doing. We're breaking apart the molecules every time we do this. You need a temperature of 140 degrees. never would believe that 140 degrees could be made by just erasing with the pen. But here we go on the griddle. My griddle starts at 150, so it's plenty hot right now. And I'm going to stick it on the griddle. I'm going to use my tongs so my fingers don't get burned. And it is gone. All right. So we've tried all of our heat sources, and you may have other things at home. Maybe you've got blow dryers, a possibility. But you can also use the pen that is on the end of your friction pen. So I'm going to write friction right there. I think I can make this heat up to 140 degrees and erase this. Let's see. Remember the pencil when we erased that and had all those crumbs? Because we were actually taking a layer off. Not with the friction pen. 140 degrees and it just disappears. All right. So we've done all of our heat sources. And let's see what's happened in the cooler. Yeah, it has not gotten cold enough in here. So earlier, well, here's the first one we did. Heat kettle. I'm not sure it's beginning to come back. I don't know if you can see that or not. But if you just put this in your freezer, just throw the paper in the freezer and leave it there for, oh, maybe 15 minutes. But this is a message I wrote earlier, and it had started to come back. What it said is, science is cool. And all you can see right now is cool. So, but try that with your freezer at home. It works perfectly. Okay. So, what did all of our sources have in common? Heat. Heat is hot. Please always check with an adult to make sure you are using these heat sources appropriately and use things to protect your skin from hot surfaces. Okay. And you can find out additional resources on all kinds of science topics at the library in books like these. This one about Yellowstone Park. You see the geyser on the front? Thermal energy. It's like we use thermal energy to erase our friction pens. And books like these two, Explorapedia and Exploratorium Science Snack Book, has all sorts of interesting things to do. And if you ever get to San Francisco, make sure you try and put the Exploratorium on your list of things to do. It is an amazing place. Also, we have all sorts of resources online. On the library website under the Research and Learn tab, and there are other STEAM for Tweens videos on the library's YouTube page. Miss Jennifer did one just recently on using the power of the sun, where she showed you how to make a solar oven and make s'mores. So that would be a good one to watch too. You can go back and watch those at any time. So thanks for coming. I hope you enjoy your friction pen and you can send secret messages to your friends. Thanks for coming. Bye.